Welcome to the study. This is Professor Hemlock here. We have just gotten the 9.1 starting patch notes, and it is on the PTR. And I just wanted to kind of share with everyone the news, what we're looking at, and some of these changes. So I want to start off by going over some of the very first things that caught my eye, which are some of the PvP changes. So Arcane does have a new PvP talent, Canosphere, and then Arcane Blast now deals 20% more damage in PvP combat. In addition to Kleptomania is now Arcane only, okay? So the Kleptomania change, let's go over that first real quick. Kleptomania is not something traditionally run by Arcane, mainly due to the fact that spell stealing an enemy continuously, it grants you clear casting procs because it spends mana, and you want that mana spent, that way you can keep getting clear casting procs. So Kleptomania is definitely situational. I would almost say this is more a nerf to fire than it is a buff to Arcane. Okay. Arcane Blast dealing 20% more damage in PvP combat. I think that's a great buff. It's going to help out your burst windows. Typically, you're saving Presence of Mind for your burst windows right now in PvP. When you pop Presence of Mind, you pop AP, you're then essentially casting a spell and getting max damage out of it. Another thing that I want to go over is our Canosphere. So I have that pulled up here. Essentially, this is you channel a spell for 4 seconds. At the end of that 4 seconds, it passes through any barriers the enemies may have on them, it knocks the players back, and then deals an amount of damage. So, interesting. I thought, okay, this is kind of a cool little ability. Let's just see how hard this thing hits. So I was screwing around with it. Let's just see what an AP hit does, right? So we're going to cast AP. We're going to use our Canosphere, and let's just see what happens. Oh, a 38,000 crit and a 20,000 non-crit. Boom. That was just AP. My mind is blown. That's a lot of damage. Now, obviously, in PvP, it's going to be a little bit lower, right? You're going to have things like versatility is going to lower, enemy defensives. You're going to have to wearing more verse gear. Those type of things are going to lower the damage, but that is an absurd amount of damage for PvP combat. It's going to do a lot of damage. Oh, and we can see right here, a Frost Mage just cast a Mage, the new Mage PvP talent, which is essentially like an Overwatch Maze Wall. Very similar. So, very nifty. Overall, these are just such cool changes. For PvP, I play PvP a lot. It's probably one of my favorite forms of the game. I think this might make Arcane a little bit more viable, especially with some of the changes that are being done to other classes in PvP. We may be able to see Arcane get some viability in PvP. So that's really exciting, and I just freaking hope this Arcanosphere ends up being playable to some degree, because that is sick! It's so cool. Okay, so moving on here. We do have Covenant Legendary effects now. So, starting in 9.1, there's going to be a new Legendary effect for each Covenant. Now, the big thing here is they haven't dropped the Night Fae one. So Night Fae is not known yet. Venthyr, essentially every time you consume a clear cast, it reduces Mirrors of Torment's cooldown. And if Mirrors of Torment is dispelled, which is really just a PvP thing for the most part, it is going to reduce the cooldown by 45 seconds. So essentially what that means is you're going to be a big missiles spamming build if you're Venthyr. You spam more missiles, you get more clear casts, you're then going to be able to get Mirrors of Torment more, which gives you more clear cast. And if you heard me talking with, I believe this was during the APM Billion interview, as Prodigy scales, think about that. You're going to have more clear cast, more uptime with Mirrors of Torment, more uptime with AP. Venthyr may be able to see a 1-minute AP. That is possible with Venthyr in 9.1. I'm very interested to see what this actually pans out to be. It's such a cool legendary effect, and I hope it ends up being as cool as I think it could be. The legendary effect for Kyrian, essentially, Radiant Spark will apply almost a small area of effect. It'll be 4 targets will get the benefit of your Radiant Spark debuff, the vulnerability debuff, and they will take 25% of that damage dealt as well. So that's kind of cool. Unfortunately for Kyrian, I don't see it being too functional, predominantly because Kyrian relies on Harmony to do the massive amount of damage it does, and the AoE damage from Harmony alone is extremely powerful, and this is just simply not going to be that viable. At least not in its current state. Now, here's the thing. If you're able to equip 2 legendaries in the future content, 9.2, 9.3, whatever, then this may be seeing a lot of play for Mythic plus Kyrian. Woo! That would be gnarly. You'd be doing a lot of damage. Moving on to the Necro Lord effect. Essentially, every time you cast your Arcane Blast, you're going to have a chance to proc Deathborn for 8 seconds. And then additionally, while in the form of the Skeleton Mage, spell damage granted is increased for each enemy hit by your Arcane Blast. This one's going to be interesting. I don't know exactly how viable it's going to be. This is going to take, the math equations that are going to be here are going to be like, what's the procs per minute? And how much damage are you going to be able to funnel while keeping your Deathborn available? Really, the procs per minute is going to be the main staple of, is this going to be viable or is this just a joke, right? But that is still cool. It's an interesting concept. And if it's able to have a lot of uptime in procs, where you could, time it maybe with your secondary rune and Touch of the Magi window, that might be a really cool thing, and you might be able to get a lot more damage out of your Skeletal Mage ability. So it has potential, but it'll be unknown until we actually get the figures on procs per minute. Now, in addition to that, every Covenant is going to be getting some new Soulbinds. So these Soulbinds are essentially going to have different things that are going to be occurring now. So instead of, I'll pull it up here actually so you can kind of see, each Soulbind will have more tiers, more rows, and with different abilities. So there's a whole bunch of them. I'm kind of going to go over these very quickly here. I don't want to have this video last too long. So really the important ones here, we'll focus on specifically what they mean for Arcane. So Venthyr Arcane, you will always pretty much be running Theotar for that amazing mastery buff. So the additions here are, it's always tea time. When Soothing Shade activates, Tubbins and Gubbins each offer you a cup of tea, healing you for X amount of health, and reducing damage taking while standing in the shaded area. This is not going to be any damage increase, not going to be that good. What is the one that will be usable here is the while you are well fed, you gain speed and avoidance. That's probably going to be the one that's going to be the best of the two here. You can kind of see it here. It's the, let's see. There it is. Life is but an appetizer. So you gain 60 speed and 60 avoidance. Speed is always somewhat usable simply because it helps us with movement if we need to. But it does give you an endurance slot or a finesse slot activation. So it's probably going to come down to whatever you want, whether it's an endurance or a finesse conduit. The ending one here, Party Favors. Essentially, you get a world buff. Harkens back to the old days. You speak to Theotar in Sinfall. He grants you the Mad Duke's Tea. It increases your intellect, haste, or your critical strike by 3%, or your versatility by 3% for 1 hour. So, this is kind of a joke. I don't really like this. It goes back to like the old days of getting a world buff before you go into raid. If it stays with you when you start doing raid boss pulls, but it's only for 1 hour. So it's not usable in PvP. It's definitely not usable in raid content. It's only for 1 hour. So this is kind of just like a cool little world buff, and you can go do world content with, I guess. Okay. Moving on to Kyrian, we'll focus on Pelagos here. This is the one that every Arcane Mage would use. Essentially, since the mastery buff is so powerful, I doubt that's going to change. Now, let's see here. Better Together. So during combat, Moving within 3 yards of a party or raid member inspires you both, increasing your mastery by 52 for 1 minute. So essentially, this is going to be 100% uptime, basically, is my guess, where you're going to have 100% uptime on 52 mastery. The next one is Newfound Resolve. At any moment during combat, there is a low chance your doubt will manifest for 10 seconds. Directly facing your doubt will overcome it, granting 12% intellect and stamina for 15 seconds. Now, wow. Woo! 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 12% primary stat is nuts. It's nuts. That's crazy good. So, if again, this kind of goes back to the Necro Lord thing. Procs per minute is what matters. If this has a very high uptime on procs per minute, oh my gosh. You just time your goes based on when you get to see you're directly face your doubt. Then you get 12% intellect buff for your big goes. That would be crazy. That'd be crazy. That would be absolutely insane. Or say you see your doubt proc's over on your left-hand side. You're not ready for your go yet, but you're really close. You can then build up your harmony stacks, and then you can Radiant Spark, face your doubt, touch of the Magi, AP, 15 seconds, bam, you can funnel all your damage right after getting that buff. I could see that being very cool, interactive, and 12% primary stat is off the charts. That's a lot. Of course, Better Together is probably just a great consistent buff, so either option sounds great. The final one here is Path of Devoted. After recovering from a loss of control effect, you take 15% reduced damage, and your movement speed cannot be reduced below 90% for 6 seconds. This may only occur once every 30 seconds. This is a great PvP buff, and it's pretty much just for PvP. There's not going to really be any other effect where that's going to be that necessary in PvE content. But if you are Curian, you're PvPing, we just saw how awesome Supernova was earlier, our Canosphere was earlier. And this could, again, add to even more viability for Arcane in PvP, where we just take less damage and we can't be reduced below a certain amount of movement speed, which is great. Movement speed is what Arcane relies on for mobility in PvP, so that could totally see some viability. Now, we'll go over Necro Lords, our final thing here. Amani is pretty much the soulbind you use as Necro Lord, just due to the intellect buff. There is a little asterisk here for the Bonesmith, but we'll focus on Amani first. Postulate Eruption. So Fleshcraft covers you in 3 pustules per 1 second channeled. Taking damage or being healed pops a pustule, dealing essentially it's a versatility based damage profile, nature damage to nearby enemies, and healing nearby allies split between them. So kind of a nifty effect. I don't really, let's see. This is like going to be more of a PvP thing. If you're like taking damage or you're about to get CC'd or something, you pop this and you're going to be able to, reduce the amount of damage you take. You're going to be able to deal damage back. And it's kind of, an effect that's going to be beneficial. Not really for PvE, not too much beneficial unless there's specific times where you can't deal DPS and you're taking damage, then it might see some use there, but it's pretty niche. Resilient Stitching is the next one. While above 90% health, you gain a shield that absorbs a versatility-based amount of magic damage for 1 minute. This effect cannot occur more than once per minute. So, again, this is generically just a little beneficial defensive option here. So, kind of nice. Again, not that useful in PvE content. Obviously, there's going to be some uses here depending on specific fights. If you're taking AoE magic damage, things like that, it's going to be nice, but it's not going to dramatically impact our gameplay. Soul Slough is the next one here. After standing still for 5 seconds, the next time you move, you and a nearby allies gain 20% increased movement speed. This is nice. This is actually something that's going to get some use, I would say. Essentially, say you're, doing your damage rotation, blah, blah, blah. There's a movement mechanic that occurs. Oh no, I need to move. Now you can move faster. Faster movement speed is going to then allow you to get back to doing your DPS rotation faster. Getting back to that DPS rotation is more beneficial. So, of course, that is great news. Looks like the servers are closing down here. So yeah, that is kind of a nice little benefit there. Little movement speed bonus. And we'll look at the Bonesmith here too, since that is occasionally played by Arcane as well. Carver's Eye, damaging an enemy above 90% health grants you 200 mastery for 5 seconds, up to 5 stacks. Wow. Okay. You cannot gain this benefit from the same target for 10 seconds. So damaging an enemy above 90% health grants you 200 mastery for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This could actually be wild. Wow, 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 wow. So that is going to be, I mean, on an AoE pack in Mythic Plus content, that is going to be 1,000 mastery for 5 seconds. And depending on how they make this work, so you could proc it off of 3 mobs and then wait for the duration to get low and then proc it off a 4th mob and then it stacks up again and it resets the totality of the duration. You could possibly chain this effect into more and more and more. It depends how they make this, how they code this effect. This is crazy though. Wow, that is super powerful. That would be a really fun thing to test with Necro Lord, especially in Mythic Plus. This is just going to be really great. Wow. That reminds me of kind of like the Crane build in Night Fae right now, where you do a bunch of, you get a bunch of critical strike chance when you first hit something. You're essentially getting a bunch of mastery buff here. So it's going to increase your mana regen. It's going to make you do more AoE damage. Really cool. That's really nice. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Maybe I will. Mnemonic equipment. There we go. The professor. Mnemonic equipment. When you damage an enemy that's below 35% HP, 3% of the damage done is repeated over 5 seconds. Healing an ally grants them the ability to have their damage repeat this way at 35% or 30% effectiveness for 5 seconds. And this is limited to 2 targets. Not bad. 3% damage repeated over 5 seconds is fairly low. I don't see this being that beneficial. It maybe in raids this would be beneficial when it's on one target. Probably in raids is where this would be most beneficial, because if a target's dropped below 35%, 3% of that damage done that you do just gets repeated continuously. So that might be beneficial. Again, this kind of depends on how it functions. But I don't see this being, especially if they're on the same tier as Carver's Eye, there's very little chance you would actually use that. The final one is Waking Bone Breastplate. When 3 or more enemies are nearby, your maximum health is increased by 5%. This effect lingers for 5 seconds. Not bad. Maybe it's useful in PvP. Otherwise, it's not going to be that useful in PvE content. Simply it just making you have less chance to die to mechanics if you accidentally get hit by something. So pretty nifty, not that bad, but not that useful. So wow, nifty, nifty, nifty. So it does look like there are some of the Night Fae Covenant changes here too. I will go over these real quick as well, and this will be the end. So currently we can kind of use Crane. Crane's the most popular one, so we'll start here. It's used in Mythic Plus, it's used in Raid. Hunt's Exhilaration. When damaging an enemy or healing an ally within 8 yards, you gain 3% leech. Cool. Essentially, it's going to add healing to all of your damage. Not that bad, not that useful. Vorkay Ambush. After interrupting or disorienting an enemy, they deal 5% less damage. Nifty, might be good in Mythic Plus for tank effects. this, I mean, obviously we don't have a real disorient as Arcane Fire does with Dragon's Breath. So for Fire, this could be pretty useful because it's going to make it so the tank takes way less damage. Of course, ours is only an interrupt, so again, not that useful. Wild Hunt Stratagem. When your damage or healing is enhanced by Wild Hunt tactics, gain Wild Hunt Stratagem for 1 minute. The next time you damage an enemy who is below 35% health or heal an ally who is above 75%, Wild Hunt Stratagem is activated to increase your damage and healing to such targets by 5%. So this is great. Wild Hunt Stratagem, that's really nice. Pretty nifty. So it kind of funnels into what already Karain plays forward with First Strikes being the Mythic Plus build. This just kind of amplifies that effect, where now you have that condemned style of damage, right? You have damage at the top end, you have damage at the bottom end. So it's going to make that build even more consistent, where you have more of more damage in execute phase. And making it so you're essentially more effective in that range. So if you're running the Execute Legendary for Night Fae, this is going to mean you're going to basically thump things when they get below 35%. Really cool, pretty nice, and I think that's actually going to be playable. That'll be really good in PvE content, specifically Mythic Plus. That's going to be really nice. Naya here, other commonly used Soulbind, Bonded Hearts. Gaining a stack of redirected anima from Grove Invigoration heals up to 5 nearby allies for 2% of their health. If any of the affected allies are of another covenant, redirected anima's mastery and maximum health effects are increased by 50%. Nice, encourages you to play with friendlies that are of not the Night Fae covenant. It's a healing effect, though, so again, it might see, like, minor benefits, but it's not going to be a game changer. Called Shot. When you critically strike, you gain 20% movement speed for 5 seconds. May only occur once every 10 seconds. Kind of nice, actually. With how much crit you want to run as Arcane, this definitely could see some, benefit to you. If you score a critical strike and you have movement occur when you have the buff, it's going to have 50% uptime pretty much. Near 50% uptime. So you're going to basically be able to have 20% move speed 50% of the time. Kind of nice. Not super impactful on our gameplay, but if you need to make large amounts of movement, then this is going to be beneficial. Survivor's Rally. When you fall below 50%, you regain 20% of your health over 10 seconds and receive 5% additional healing from other spells and abilities. May only occur once every 60 seconds. Pretty cool. I see this as more of a PvP thing than anything else. If you get knocked below 50% in raid and things like that, most often your healers are going to instantly top you up. There's not really in raid or Mythic Plus slow healing that occurs. You just get topped up if you get dropped down below. So having a 20% heal over 10 seconds is very, very minor and is not going to be that impactful in PvE content. But in PvP content, where you see yourselves taking lots of damage continuously and you may drop below 50%, but your health is spiking, dropping, and moving back and forth, this could see some benefit and be of some use. Typically, you run Dreamweaver for PvP, but with Naya, this could just be a cool little alternative with your other options for movement speed with, like, Called Shot, right? Anyways, that is all of the major changes as it relates to Arcane so far for 9.1. Let me know what you're most excited about down in the comments. I'm excited to chat with everyone about this. I'm pumped. I mean, the PvP buff alone. I'm ready. I'm hoping this lets Arcane have some PvP viability. Ending the video there. Have a great day, everyone, and good luck.